So we make phones it.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. It's good evening actually. Um, Welcome to the DeBrief show. We just want to take a minute to share the link with our fellow viewers, and then we can get started. But we just want to say welcome to everyone. I hope everyone is having a good weekend so far. We surely are. Well, I did work all day, so I don't know how everybody week went. I surely work all day, but we want to say good evening to everyone. In today's discussion, we are going on youth, and what we want you to do is share and like the video, please, with your friends and families and all your people that are on your page. If you can, share and follow. If there's any glitch, let us also know. So we're just going to wait for some other people to come onto the show, and while we share it as well with our followers.
Oh, he's good.
We're just sharing out
Let's try and share it to the chat.
up to all these things. You still didn't know it's here.
No, I do as long as time, but for some reason it's still not doing as.
Hey Wazoo, welcome. I'm going to Wazoo's. We just saying I'm waiting for this 6 o'clock, 6:30 start.
Sure, sure.
With us, but again, we appreciate it. We appreciate you coming on faithfully on the show with us. So we really appreciate it. So give us a couple of seconds while we just share with people that are waiting for us as well, and we will start in a second or two. Yeah, but we just hit on it. We're discussing youth in the money. We're discussing youth today, discussing a number of sub topics. A number of sub topics today as well. So, Wazoo said no. We experience be waiting for us, Wazoo, but all is well. So we want you to share the thing. Just give us a second while we just share it publicly to some other persons that are waiting for us to go live, and then we will start. Yeah. And we want to know what you would like to discuss as it relates to the topic of youth. So, if you see anything that you wish to discuss, let us know as well, so we can have that put into our discussion as we talk about things as pertaining to the youth and what's not. So feel free to let us know what you want to talk about. Again, if there's any technical glitches, let us know. Hi, Jerry, or Mr. Lewis. So yeah, we're discussing youth. With myself here today, we have Kibar Stewart all by himself over there in white. We have myself, Kimar Safri, and then next to me we have Jermaine Beckford. We say he'd like to be known as Mr. Objective, so let's call him that. But today we are discussing youth. We're discussing a various number of subtopics as it relates to youth. So we really want to get your engagement, what you think about youth, and we've seen so much things as it relates to youth violence, bullying. I don't know if any of you guys caught that video with the young lady that was beaten at the I think it was Princess Margaret Secondary School. And she was mobbed by a number of students that would have abused or beaten her. We don't know what the reason or what started the fight or what's not, but surely she was mobbed by a set of students, and that's always a problematic thing for me for sure, because that is something that it really hits home, that you see young people being beaten. And I know sometimes some people say that she deserve it because she went and troubled somebody or he went and troubled somebody. But it's always heart wrenching when we see the gang as it relates to a number of persons fighting and beating on one person. And back in my days at school, we always said if one man fight, let him fight. But if a group fight, then we get a group fight. You understand? But now you're seeing where several persons are getting in on these fights, and the girl was kicked in her head, and even though she was down, you back in school, if somebody down, you're going to get them a chance to get back up. But even when she was down, she was still being kicked, punched, and what's not, till somebody had to start the fight. And I really hope that something come out of it through the judicial system, that these things are dealt with. And I really think that as we should really look to put something more stringent to deal with these youth and these young people that it relates to this violence in school and this heatedness, So, I really hope that some action is taken against these students for abusing this young lady, or whatever the case may be. But I also pray that the ministry would also get to the bottom of it as well. Right? Tingling sound. The man, they don't know what tingling sound you're hearing. I'll try to fix it. So I hope if you're hearing technical glitch, let us know, so we can sort it out. But yeah, so Kimar, you wanted to touch on youth today as a topic. Let's hear where you are. What do you think?
Well, I mean, as it relates to the issue of the school children fighting, I don't like to see fights that are unfair in numbers.
Yeah.
Not that I like to see fights,
period, but one where is really.
If it's a fight, a one-on-one fight would be the better situation that you'd be able to represent yourself if that's the case.
Yeah.
But a whole gang of students fighting with one girl is not right, and I personally believe some action should be taken against
all of them.
All of them for doing that, because I mean, back in my earlier days at school and what's not.
You're not young.
Yeah, but I still not.
When I say that young, you're not that old.
Yeah, but still not at secondary school anymore. Huh?
Mm-hmm.
So in those times, although we had our little tingles and what's not, it was just like you had a tingle, a disagreement, and then the next day you're back together as friends.
Yeah.
Right.
But never to the point that it is a 6-on-1 or a 7-on-1 or what's not.
It's like we had a little bit more code than that, like respect than that, to beat up on people in large numbers. Because normally people will get in. Because they don't see the abuse.
It would be a whole big soiree in that regard. But I mean, nevertheless, I still think we are children and they still need to understand how situations like that could escalate, because somebody kicked her in her head and that's a knockout blow, and that could easily give her a concussion and lead to death.
And then somebody can be saying, "I'm sorry."
Right, and then that's your whole life going on. I can remember when how traumatic the experience of school kids dying on an entire school. So imagine an act of violence in that regard and causing the death of this girl. How that would traumatize an entire school over, I would say, some cheerleaders gassing you up to get him to the foot. I don't know if you have.
Well, before I say anything, Wazoo Gul just said here, if the children was educated and not indoctrinated, we won't have these problems. Wazoo, I possibly could agree with you on one point, that a lot of children are indoctrinated. Now, it is so funny. Today I spent some time with my son, alright? And my son was a bit sick. Children men are ready to be mischievous and naughty and that sort of stuff. So he kept some noise. Now at one point I had a tablet there and I was playing some cartoons for him. Alright? Now, as a responsible father, I decided that we can sit down and watch these together because I gotta see what you watching. Alright? Now, we were watching Paw Patrol. Right? And you know, Paw Patrol is this cute little cartoon, and the children like to watch it and that sort of stuff. But inside of that cartoon, there are elements of violence. Alright? Now, as the children grow older, the cartoons get more mature. Right? By the time the children become around the same 11 to 16, a lot of children then into Dragon Ball Z. Well, I could say in my day,
Pokemon, Dragon Ball,
Naruto, unless the cartoons that you guys just mentioned, right? Many children then turn to
They hated every one of them.
16, 17. They no longer watch cartoons. It's either the girls like to go to what they call the chick flicks, right? Which sexualizes them, right? And the guys like to go into the hardcore actions. So like, remember guys, you can watch Rambo, right? So imagine we as big men watch Rambo, we talk within ourselves, man, this is some serious stuff, right? But youngsters like age of 16 watching that sort, that level of violence, and in their mind they're saying this hard, this is good, right? Now, when you are exposed to that level of violence at home for most of the day, because when you're on vacation, you're watching TV. When you're watching TV, playing video games, right? Some people live in environments where, as you know, they got blocks outside, so those men have been indoctrinated into that same level of violence, and they're just more or less a byproduct of what they have exposed themselves to now. Some of them, not all, right? So you got violence inside the house, sometimes parents fighting. You go and watch TV, you see violence. You go outside, you see violence. You play a video game, there's violence. You walk down the road, feel cursing and all that.
So you're saying all these is contributing factors to the reason why these children behave the way they behave?
Of course. We can't dispute
I agree with you in some.
I agree with you in some regard.
I know in case of pastors, and preachers, Anglican bishops.
So we had our discussion in here already too.
Yes.
Yeah, so
they wield more guns than anybody. Smoke more drugs than anybody.
Police officer children too.
Right, and I see that as a common factor. These what we call high prestige,
high society people.
What's not. Their kids tend to be way more wayward.
It's probably that they get off for doing things that, or they don't get catch for doing things that these
before y'all get far, I would say that those a lot of people in the so-called high society who do these things, right? I find from the interactions that I've had with some that for them it was more adventure.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I had a girlfriend. She was a, middle class, upper class girl, and she spent a lot of her time liking bad boys. She spent a lot of her time liking the real gangster boys, and because obviously coming from a sheltered life to a life where, she was tired of hearing mommy said this and daddy said this and sitting down eating chicken wing when they found fart. So when she get out there, she get a feel for the real world in the sense that you were free. Everybody tell you laugh at what jokes you on that ain't funny. You don't put a level that you ain't gonna go home and pretend to be somebody that you ain't. So you kind of felt a little bit free, and that is then how people reacted. But my thing is, as it relates to the youth, I think that right now, why a lot of youth are getting on the way they're getting on is because a lot of times they feel that they have a point to prove.
Yeah.
A lot of times the youth also feel that I gotta hold my own weight. I've heard people mention, man, you go and tell a teacher upon somebody and they may listen to you. You complain you're a snitch. You don't want to say you're a punk. So I feel now that I gotta handle this business myself to prove to everybody I'm a punk, I'm a snitch, I can handle myself. So you find that they're confused.
Yeah.
Because if they tell the snitch, if they tell somebody, some teachers don't want to hear, they don't believe them, and they still don't want to be a punk at the same time. So they find that I really got to defend myself here, everywhere, and that is where I think the essence of why they behave. And obviously when you're in a crowd, as you said, Kima, earlier, that cheerleader, and that rose up. I remember when a guy went to Eddie Nichols, and when he came back from Eddie Nichols, he was hailed as like a hero.
Yeah.
You know, cause you went Eddie Nichols, boy, no boy ain't getting wrong. He know, no boy ain't touching she, no boy ain't doing that. She's a gangster, he's a gangster, and it came back with a prayer session, rather than an obsession where you felt that you went to be punished. It felt that you went to be come back to be praised.
So I want to ask a question. You speaking about Eddie Nichols. What about sometimes students go before the magistrate, and the magistrate instead of reminding you to Eddie Nichols, send you there, decide to remind the dogs. What happens when
But the
those students
magistrate
go back?
doesn't necessarily or remind you to dodge. Eddie Nichols, the principal, does.
Okay, but I mean, when the magistrate sends you to Her Majesty's prison's dogs, and you go there, you spend a week, right? You come back to the same secondary school. What are you viewed as then? Because I mean, you really went.
You're still viewed as a bad boy or as a saint. Whenever they take a trip, because there's some people that go to like Eddie Nichols and there's some people that go to DOTS, JS we should call it.
Mm-hmm.
And when they
adult prison.
when they go to even the adult prison, when they go there, they come back telling stories like if the stories were jokes. Man, I went there, man. Nobody about me. I had enough men around me. I was a gangster. They get healed. I get shot. Even though they could have gone out there, anything could have happened today. They ain't come back out and say, yo, a man tamper with me. They ain't gonna come back out and say there. So you understand?
True.
When they gonna come back out and say is that, yo, are they a sweet boy? Yo, and then in their mind now, they can feel that I got more. I can better go back out there.
But we made a point on the show sometime before that when you go to prison in certain sects of society,
Mm-hmm.
you are here that's almost like a god, and men come and give you cars and money and weed and girls and all of these are things that you get living a real world life. But if you stay on the straight and narrow path,
It's hard to get these things.
it's hard to get these things, and then the fact that you're struggling financially, and then your parents not around, and
Or they may be struggling too, so you might be the only boy.
I wouldn't say it's hard to get these things if you stay on the straight and narrow path.
right, but it takes
A little longer.
So it's hard.
the patience is not there, and then when you're hungry, you're not thinking straight, and
Yeah.
then when you have bad influences, that helps to compound the issue and make it worse.
So Wiki, Mar, what we think about two things then. What we think about the Ministry of People's Youth and Community Development, what you think on how they have been performing, and also the Prime Minister have now started that new or revised boot camp, as they would like to call it. What your thoughts are as it relates to both of those?
Personally, for me,
Yeah, personally.
I think this block entrepreneurs program is a slap in the face of Barbadian youth.
Why?
Right? That's you know.
Mm-hmm.
No. I get the idea of trying to facilitate businesses with fellas on the block, right?
Mm-hmm.
But fellas on the block still don't even classify themselves as block men per se. Block men is a label that comes from, I would say, the goody two shoes side of society.
Mm-hmm.
So if you study the psychology of what makes up a block, a block is a set of fellas, sometimes girls, of like minds, most who live in the same neighborhood, if not too far, where you come together and what's not. Even if you hear the levels of conversations and what's not, sometimes you realize that these are brilliant people.
Yeah.
A lot of them at Harrison's College, Comamere, and some of the high schools in Barbados. But still, there are things that takes place at home that drives them to being on the block.
And every boy on the block don't necessarily be idle, because some people work and then come on the block.
We're good. So what I'm saying is, these people could easily get up off of the block
Mm-hmm.
and go and make something of themselves easy.
Yeah.
Right? So another thing too is, I personally, as a young university student, what can you doing want to be a block entrepreneur? What about all the thousands of students coming out to UB? They don't want to be block entrepreneurs.
But I think-
Hold
I think it was
on,
probably-
hold on. Before you go any farther, right? And I can say this.
governments will have to find different ways at different times to reach out to every single person in society. So the way how the government of Barbados may reach out to a bank or a charity can be different to how they reach out to men who quote unquote sit down on what we call blocks versus the program that the government just started. We call it Revise the Boot Camp, right? But I actually see that as a very good program.
I know it. I don't think it's a
We didn't get to the boot camp part.
But it is necessary.
But as it relates to the block, I remember the whole idea around the block program was to, you know, these guys are already kind of entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
These guys are already making money from the bags, from the bottle, from whether they're selling loose cigarettes, from where they're selling, you know, whatever they're selling, nuts and bottles, nuts and bags. So I think when it came out, I knew for sure it was to create that, take that and create that employment. What I think it did, where I think it went wrong, I think it's scattered too far and wide. Whereas to pilot it, I would have chosen one block from every parish. And I would have worked with that because it was supposed to also create, like, these guys, if these guys wanted weed walkers, if these guys wanted lawnmowers, supposed to create that block. Because on an average block, you may got 10 to 15 men. So that's a lot of men that you still dealing with. If you look on it, you may be dealing with at least 100 men. And they would have looked to see if that program would have graduated at least 50 men from the block.
So you'll do it. You'll do a test run on one block first.
One block first, and then I would have give my thing would be to work with every 6 months. 6 months I will be changing a block.
Okay.
But I would be working with the block every 6 months, and aim to have at least move 50 persons within 6 months phases of the block.
I agree with the structure and how you just explained it.
But it's not the way it is now.
But what you want for us in Barbados to do is to deconstruct this block thing.
Yeah.
Because
you know, blocks originated in Africa before the slaves even came to the Caribbean.
But I mean,
so that was something natural to us as a people already.
Notwithstanding, when you hear block, your mind is automatically associated with certain elements.
Yeah.
So when you hear block, you think weed, you think alcohol, you think guns.
But what you will replace it with? Because it's not going to get replaced just because we say so.
For me, from going outside and living with fellas, that's all it is. That's all it is. But you passing me and seeing me there, the first conception is he's a block man too.
Yeah, but it doesn't it come from the fact that, or if I pass there, yeah, I see Kima on the block, but me and Jermaine here on the block, puff passing, doing things that what people like. If somebody passes and see 5 of we outside or 6 of we outside underneath a tree, watching TV.
This is a block.
No, not necessarily watching TV. Or 5 or 6 of we outside slamming dominoes. It's harder to say that that's a block because we're doing something constructive. However, if somebody pass now, but one man is smoking, but 5 other men smoking. One man ain't doing nothing, but 2 men selling. One man ain't doing anything, but he had a man go off his shirt looking like if he did. The perception for the individual is that that's a block, and that has nothing positive to it because men smoking, men gambling, men doing so. All you see is activities put on that block that doesn't speak to anything constructive. But the other block, the other thing now is that we just breezing to watching TV, playing dominoes, playing games, and looking more like a something positive than this block over here. But so people can associate automatically where number of people lying is a block. I've heard people said, as it relates to that, we just slamming dominoes or we just playing. But then a block, they just lying there every day. So then, so people could easily in the community could identify that that's not a block. They just men that's go there and lime and play dominoes. But over here, these men drink, smoke, whatever. Officer, that's a block, but that's a block.
Yeah.
So again, the perception is what you do on it that makes a block.
I want to say this, right? They got certain areas that we're frequent because I have to go on a daily basis, right? And if I go there, and this is in St. Michael, if I go there and around like say 2 o'clock in the day, right? You might see a 1 man or 2 man who definitely ain't got a job, who they're sitting up. Right? If you go there on mornings at give or take between 6 to 7:30, 8 o'clock, you'll see a little convergence, right? But it isn't necessarily that men leave the house and come out to line because this is their job. They're standing there because your friends are there, and you waiting there till you either you're ready to come pick you up to carry your work, or you decide you want to get a bus to go work, or you might even be walking to where you're working at, right? So, and I want to say this, that a lot of men on the blocks, they got men on the blocks that got different jobs, alright? So the first thing that irks me is when I see people kind of around the blocks bringing what's it called, like weed whackers. Everybody on the block don't want a big yard now.
That's a good point.
Right? So that's the first thing for me.
No, because they have not identified. You see,
Right?
people like to look at people that in a certain predicament or a certain thing and say, look, you should go and cut grass.
But everybody playing
Yeah,
block don't want
but
big
no,
yard
but
now.
you see that's weird now.
Hold on.
They got
They got people in blocks that are excellent mechanics, carpenters, masons. They're very good tradesmen,
University
right?
graduates.
They got people in block that you could carry a computer and give to that will fix your computer for you. I mean, look, you see this thing we call a cell phone here. I am not the most tech savvy person. If this thing was to crash on me right now, I wouldn't know what to do. Alright? But I got men playing block that I could carry this phone to that will reinstall all the drivers and everything that is needed to make this phone work. Yes, though they're smoking weed and all sorts of stuff.
Right. It comes back down to my point. Right, they got to deconstruct that
Myth of the block.
myth
Yeah.
of a block. Right? Because to me, when it was growing up, from the elders all over here is don't go up on the block and smoke no door.
Yeah.
Right? So from the time you go outside and talk to people who's come outside and live,
Mm-hmm.
you were them.
Yeah.
Right? Now when they know the reality of it, when they went and they spoke to these so-called block men,
Mm-hmm.
this is some of the most intelligent men I meet in Barbados.
You want to always find out how intelligent most of them are? You ever had to go court for a court case? Well, I mean, if you went as a accused, I mean, if you just had to go court in general.
Yeah.
The reason why you ask,
But
right?
that meant it don't mean that it mean tricky.
Right, no,
Not
but
as
a lot
smart.
of these men,
You can't create that as smart.
Hold on. A lot of these men, some of the men that lay my block that find themselves in around Foley law, some of them may even be in prison, right? And these men can't court and defend themselves. Sometimes use a lot of cell with the prosecutor prepare. These men doesn't know what's going on. I mean, these men know the law.
but
these men
it-
got intelligence.
But and I did that they got intelligence because they go in front of court and play a good case. Anybody can play a good case. And even in Jamal's play a good case when he ain't a black man.
I hear people violent defense of this.
But my thing is where we have to look at, even if you're talking about removing that stigma that attached to black,
Mm-hmm.
it calls for those men to remove the stigma that is attached for black. Sometimes we just try to remove things that the average man need to remove themselves. The men on the block will go and start behaving a little different. The men on the block will go and start, when a man come around on the block and want to do crap, he will go and move off the block. So that when people see it, they don't see it as a block that got problems, or or as in the people say. I remember one time I was watching a movie, and this guy came, and the block or the gang men would do things certain way, but one of the rules is you don't kill police.
But I want to say a minute.
here is it.
No, hold on. I want you to say a minute.
Hold on.
I grew up in Silver Hill, right? And opposite where I grew up in Silver Hill, there was a block. And this from morning till night, they got some men who religiously stayed over there, who were Silver Hill residents, right? You know, the one thing that I noticed about the block in Silver Hill and other parts, the people who actually live in the area who line on the block don't be troublemakers, you know. It's a lot of men who's coming from outside.
Yeah, but don't
coming from their
but
blocks
hold
and
on,
they
don't.
get
I thought you was on my path.
Mm-hmm.
What I was saying is, back in America, in those places, one of the things you don't do, you don't kill a cop. The reason why you don't kill a cop is that it will bring too much heat on the block or in the community, and it's not good for business. So what I'm saying is, back in my days when I was running the boat, if I went on a block and I was doing crap, I would have left the block.
Yeah.
Cause the men didn't want the heat. If it was hot, meaning police looking for you or anything, you had left the block. The men didn't want the heat. The side thing is that if the block get more morals like that there, that you when you come around, you can't come around do no foolishness. Hold yourself, hold your thing. If you smoke your weed here, shut your face, go long one. If that does not be the undertaking of a lot of the bosses or the whatever on the block, then that block become a heated block. Now, if too you got a man that left there on a block, and let's say a man in Brady Hill go downtown and trouble a man in Nelson Street.
Yeah.
And then Nelson Street retaliate, because Nelson Street retaliating based on the one name. They saying 249 can down here and trouble 627. Now 627 done got there for 249 and they make care who they go for, they block again. So when you associate yourself so and you brand yourself or you whatever, that's when the whole noises come about, the whole issue of block that's come about, because you got a name. If it was just me and whatever my partner, we just like it'd be different. But people want to brand themselves, people want to get themselves knocks, people want to get themselves. So when you go down there and trouble a man, and you got you behind you right up with 249, and you 249 posse. You gain another, you give another a man ammunition to say wait, he went 249, but you don't let 249 boy, or you go down there and fight, you want credited to 249 one man, What you think happened? And that is where that's where we normally find that block culture, that block thing. When I was going to school, I had my guy the name Bloodstain, and you found that Bloodstain was always in trouble.
He was a real gangster.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but everybody want to join Bloodstain because we do not fights, we do nothing. But it had another gang, and it had a name, and that gang was more dissolved than we, because we had like an order, so everybody wanted to join that order, everybody want blood in. You had to get beat to get in the gang. So everybody feel that they had to blood in to get in that gang and feel appreciated. But the other gang had 3-4 people, but they may have a name. We had a name, so everybody want to join that name, because that name is synonymous with being bad.
Okay, so explain the realities of a lot of young men in Barbados.
Yeah.
Right? They're looking for organized groups to be in. Obviously, they can get levels of camaraderie, people who think like them, opportunities that come up for them to get money in the pocket. You know what? You get.
How much money does Ray get in the pocket though? That's
not
one thing with it.
Irrelevant, because for you say for them men is a lot.
Right. And they get opportunities to do and have experiences that they weren't having
Before,
right? And that alone, on which is underpinned by what we call the marijuana culture, right? That alone is the reality of a lot of young men in Barbados who are now wielding guns willing to defend the marijuana business. So what happens now? Let's just say if the government legalizes marijuana now, marijuana becomes cheap. You ain't making no more money, so therefore
they look for new
you
sites.
gotta look for something new to sell. God forbid is cocaine or
which is
dope
even worse.
or what's not. I don't think Barbados ready for that level of mischief. But what I'm saying is I want people to understand the fickleness of our society and the issues that a lot of young men are facing as it relates to a sense of belonging to an organization, but not an organization like the Key Club or the Optimist Club.
Not positive, nothing.
Not just positive.
You know one issue you just raised it inadvertently, and it's something I always said when people ask me what do you want for my son when he grew up, right? I always say there's 3 things I want for him, right? Number 1, I want my son to be a God-fearing man, right? And even if he doesn't believe in God in heaven, right? Or he believe in Allah or whoever he denotes as his God when the time comes, right? I want him to recognize that there is a being that is higher than us here on earth. Alright? Number 1. Number 2, I want my son to be an honest person. Alright? So in everything that he does, I want him to espouse a sense of honesty and accountability with everything that he does. And then number 3 for me, I want my son to be an independent thinker. I don't care what profession my son grows up.
But all that is fine aside,
right.
But how you instill that note.
Hold on. if our young men and women took on at least the third trait of being independent thinkers, right? You wouldn't see the need to go and feel, as you just said, a sense of belonging in this bad boy company or
Our school
something.
system don't teach independent thinking.
But we need
But not only school system, because we don't want to lay all on the school system.
parents love
Our
to jump
parents don't teach independent either, because again, some people feel accomplished when they go and study to be a doctor, lawyer, or bank manager. So they depend, and they teach, and even though they teach those big roles, they still don't teach entrepreneurship. They teach you how to go and work for somebody, so the independent thinking is lacking. But in the home, where we need to teach our youth to be thinkers, leaders rather than followers, we are not so much doing that. Many times we came out being followers rather than leaders ourselves. So you find that the children would find to be leaders, it would be a little difficult for them because they're not accustomed to that leadership ability. And I remember, quote unquote, and probably some people can back me up on this, I remember going to school and when they used to quote unquote say the ugly girl used to follow the pretty girl. So one pretty girl
still happens.
leading four ugly girls, and the girls that they say are ugly knew that they weren't pretty, but they felt good following this pretty girl, this popular girl, and they felt a sense of worth because they felt this pretty girl was the in girl, and they want to say in with she, like good.
But
they can force themselves to look good even though they know they look good.
But Kimar,
but that's how leadership starts.
You realize, you see what you just talking about there? Every movie that we watch nowadays, right?
Agree, Wazoo.
Right, you
What's
realize.
that?
What was I saying?
You want to say?
Well, I said the school system only indoctrinated these children.
Okay, I can agree with that. But what I'm saying, right? Every movie that you watch when you're growing up, right? There's always this thing, this fascination where the pretty girl, who is identified as pretty in the movie, right, must always lead the other girls, and it is this system where the pretty girl must talk down to these girls and bring them up to her level.
Well, I mean, don't let us get into the youth standard thing. From my
To me, everybody pretty.
we established that, but from my experience, a lot of these quote unquote, you would say ugly girls got way more sense,
Standard.
way more structured, levels of thinking and intellect are way higher.
But all they want is a sense of belonging, and that's the
But they
problem.
don't have the confidence because based on society and its standards, people teach you that if you're black, you're ugly. If you got natural hair,
you're
you're
ugly.
ugly. You know, if you got a little one or two acne or bump, you're and then this is being this injustice is being
ugly.
placed on a lot of our young ladies from home as well too. So they come into the school system and come into society and come into the work culture feeling.
Well, what's the first thing that most parents buy for the 5-year-old daughters when they grow up? When it's 5 years old?
I'm not sure. I never had any.
Well,
My daughter said that one.
well, you daughter that one, right? But
And you got-
most 5-year-old daughters for Christmas, right? Is get a dolly.
A
Right.
white dolly.
It could be a white or a black dolly, right?
Well, we only know what black dolly anyway.
But you if you realize one thing, right? The most popular dolly is the Barbie doll, right? If you ever look at Barbie, slim, long hair, not natural. Barbie is an indoctrination of a generation because that younger, that 5 years old, gonna look at Barbie.
The boy don't want ugly dolly boy.
Exactly. So you can look at Barbie and you can see yourself, this is what beauty looks like. And you realize there's like a kid there teaching you how to comb the hair.
But that's the cement we say though. A lot of our parents growing up that post independence period, and even some pre-independence, and the standards of beauty coming up in the 70s and the 80s are slightly different than now. But the teachings and the ideologies from that time, our parents tried to force on us. It's only now that we got somewhat rebellious and say, hey, I didn't agree with that. You can't be giving me no ball off and no ball head, you know, and you can't be having me have my pants
That's my neighbor,
and you know. So,
But it moved from your navel to below your ass.
but I mean, we ain't going all down there. literally. But what I'm saying is, our parents had to face a tough time to be able to make it in the workplace.
Yeah.
A lot of women coming up in the workplace had to straighten the natural hair and to put on makeup and to even bleach the skins to get jobs in the banks when they first come into Barbados. So if you were high
It's still difficult for a Rasta to move the top in a bank.
Okay. No,
To move anyway.
Yeah.
we are having these European standards of beauty. Due to the fact that we were a colony, so it's fairly understandable. But I think now, given we are in 2019, we should be forming the Barbadian identity, or some would say the African identity, so that we could stand on our true selves.
Yeah.
Because I believe Barrow in his thinking and his philosophy, this is something that he would have wanted for black people in a black country to be black and proud about it. So even if we look at our institutions, a lot of our institutions are European institutions, but we have a lot of American-minded people trying to run European institutions. And look at the chaos it's creating.
Because Europeans going one way, the Americans going next way, and we in the middle trying to please everybody.
Good. So can you actually articulate a Caribbean philosophy?
Not really, to be honest.
That's my point. So what I'm saying is I want to encourage people, particularly young people coming up now in Barbados, that this is time now to try to shape our identity, coming out to all of the issues we had before. Right? We formed the identity out of slavery.
Yeah.
We some progress. I said back in the times in the 1960s, 70s, we had cane cutting culture and what's not. And people went from that to get university degrees and being professionals somewhat. So people don't identify with the word poor so much now. You tell a man poor he want.
You know, I can stick a pin there.
Yeah, it was you could go to school in Barbados with locks, so you just have to have it covered. So it is the same here.
Well, why should you have to cover your locks? A white girl could go to school with her hair flowing to she knee, and nobody cares. But why should a black man have to cover his locks? You see where you're coming from, right, anymore?
Yeah.
Right? Because I mean, it's just a whole system of double standard. Here's here, and there's some ones that said, "I am not my hair, I am not my skin, I am not your expectations."
We're still very colonial minded.
But
And that would change when youngsters like Kimara, youngsters like you and myself, when we but I mean when we get to, or when we mature to the point that we are the policymakers in the country now, our level of thinking will be totally different to those in power and those in power before them as well.
But I can say this to you before you go any far, but I agree with your point that a lot will change when people like ourselves become the policymakers. But I want to use a point that Kimar here always says: you don't have to be in a seat of power to influence power. You don't have to be a policymaker to change policy. Right? You know, like we got this program here that we do every Wednesday and every Saturday. Right? We get some very excellent suggestions from our guests. I think of the panel, we made some very excellent suggestions as well at times. And then people who join with us on Facebook, they make excellent suggestions. But if we just sit down here and we become a receptacle of all this information, alright? But we don't more or less push it at those who are sitting in the seat of power. When it's sitting in the seat of power, it doesn't necessarily have to be ministers or prime minister. It ain't got to be governor general. You got people who are directors of agencies who can help influence policies, right? You can imagine what it would be like if 500, I just use a small figure, 500 young people said, listen, I believe that if a man got locks and he wants to school, a child, that he should be able to wear his locks to school, alright? And imagine if 500 people signed a petition, and then along with signing that petition, you know, take a little walk, not a march, but take a walk to the Ministry of Education and say, I want to see the Chief Education Officer or the Minister of Education, right? And this is our position of me delivering this to you, right?
But what make it, you can make it change?
Ain't gonna change overnight, but
the authorities will know up front.
But
Well,
what I'm
listen.
saying is- but what I'm saying is, right, these are things that should be at the forefront of thinking, at the forefront of intellect. From what I'm seeing and from what I've seen
Mm-hmm.
from policymakers through all the years, right,
Mm-hmm.
these type of conversations are not at the forefront of
Because and they would never and in a lot of cases it would never be. And the reason why we say that is because we see these things as important factors. Because we are on the ground people, we are in the faces of people. Our policy makers before and now, and if we don't get into politics now as young people, our future politicians would always see other things more relevant than ours. I will show you an example. I remember when we would have post to the last administration, we would have said, hey, if you give us some money to help the homeless,
Mm-hmm.
you saving the government a ton of money.
Yeah.
And the minister I think didn't understand that. On average, it takes about $30,000 a year for an inmate, if that's what I've been hearing. And I'm saying to you, give me 150,000 and I could get 70 people off the street with that money.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not seeing that as important, and yet you're going to have magistrates after magistrate sending the same 70 people to jail,
Mm-hmm.
causing the government 30 by 70.
A lot of money.
You well over $1 million
$1 million.
there. So if the policy makers or the legislators would see the value in these things, then our parliament would not be looking at amending bill after bill after bill. Because a lot of time our leaders, all they ever have to do is leave politics. All they ever have in politics to leave politics with is the fact that they amend constitution or legislation, but they have not effectively done anything outside of that. And that is where society continues to fail. That is why our young people is at the position that they are, because many times our leaders are more reactive than they're proactive. They're not bringing new and fresh ideas. They're coming and following on a legacy of somebody else. So Kimar was started this, and I think some of them went out of politics, came back into politics with the same shitty mentality, the same shitty.
I want to make a point there right now, Kimar. I think the reason why that in itself is allowed to happen, if you, Kimar, you're a budding economist and hopefully a future politician, right? You ever compare an election campaign in Barbados, England, and America?
Yeah, look at the difference.
I mean, I see people put themselves up for politics in Barbados, right? The most I could tell you is, I know the name of streets in this constituency. They can't tell you one policy that they would bring that would actually impact upon that street. They can't tell you how their entering parliament will actually change your life. They can't explain to me how it can benefit my son in 10 years' time, right? But they'll say to you, you need to get the parking power, right? Now, when I watch American elections and British elections, I'm fascinated by them. I'll tell you the reason why. These men come up with policies, right?
Before the election.
Right, you said before the election. And I mean, like, I remember I was listening to a guy, I can't remember his name, but he was a congressman in America many years ago, right? He said he was driving, he and another person were driving his car. And there was something that happened to the vendor when the vendor went up, and he realized that could be a safety concern. All of a sudden, he carried his bill to Congress, right? And he said, look, this here is safety concern. But before he did that, he went and he polled his constituents. Does this affect you? Does that affect you? And you remember, a congressional district in America is probably 20 times the size of Barbados, right? So the fact that he took time himself and with his aides and that sort of stuff to actually get feedback from the people in that congressional district, right? And he tried to find out how that issue that he saw is affecting him, if it affected other people in his area. And when those people came back to him, he then went to Congress and he brought the bill to the floor, and he got bipartisan support. And that's another thing that I like about British and American politics. Every issue for those guys don't boil down to as a Democrat or as a Republican, as a Tory, or as a
libertarian.
No, what is it called? No,
A libertarian.
Libertarian.
Labor.
Right, a labor, right? These guys, yes, they will have fundamental differences about them that I agree, I support this, and they don't support that, right? But when a policy comes up which they see as benefiting all of their citizens, right? These guys will come together and vote together.
Oh, good. So now you say that
Mm-hmm.
for young people,
Mm-hmm.
what is the relevance of our parliamentary system right now for us?
So I know that
How is it helping? How is the current Westminster system in
You
Barbados?
say we should go Republican?
No, I'm not saying that, but let's just look.
I don't think it's beneficial in a lot of ways.
Right.
I don't think its policy is beneficial. I think it's outdated, and I think that with it would always be that way if we as young people,
Mm-hmm.
if young and fresh minds. I remember telling somebody who was interested in running in politics, and they were asking me why I would leave what I do to run politics. You know,
Mm-hmm.
being that it's a dangerous ground, and I said to them, you know why? Because I've done all I can for the homeless.
Mm-hmm.
I've accomplished everything that I've set out to do, even though something take me to 10 years and what's not.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel that I've received in my 10-year plan all that I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And I have plans past the 10 year, but I believe I've gotten a building, gotten a shelter, got program, got staff, everything. There's one problem.
What's that?
Policy. And while I may be doing really good with the homeless here, there is still policy blocking me from doing a lot of things. Like when I say that we have to get to that point where we take the homeless off the streets
Mm-hmm.
and institutionalize some of these guys that are a menace to society, like Ninja Man or what, and keep them medicated. That's a policy thing. Because you don't have to enact that with the police. That to say that if a man is unstable and proves to be a menace to society, he should be taken and institutionalized and given care.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that unless there's policy. When you see things like somebody telling you that the homeless should only get the homeless, for them to get welfare assistance, they have to give their last known address. And if they give their last known address, if my last known address was St. Lucie,
Mm-hmm.
I have to catch a bus from Bridgetown to St. Lucie to get to the welfare office.
Which is foolishness.
Which is foolishness, because I may not be in a position, I may not have any money. So when you look at certain things that are happening, even around us as a youth, it needs to be policy. I can't enact policy being Kimar Safri, president of the Barbados Veterans and Homeless Society. I have to enact policy being an MP where I can say, hey, that is something I need to champion.
But hold
In that
on,
case,
no. The one thing, the one constraint you will face as an MP, and this is something I have seen watching all the parliaments in Barbados, right? If you look at the current situation, no, the Barbados State Party they won 30 seats, and then one person defected and formed the opposition, right? Now, it is all good and well if Kimar Safri, say you were a member of parliament now, you were 1 in 29, right? And you had an idea of, you know what, this is the policy that we want to champion, alright? But if you can't get the other 28 on board, your policy dead in the water.
Well, we understand that, but the point
that's
is,
more a limitation of political
political.
party,
Mm-hmm.
right? We don't elect BLP or DLP.
We let politicians, we let members of parliament.
We elect independent members of parliament.
that make up a party.
I never let Barbadians to understand that.
30 constituency, 30
30
members.
constituency, 30 individual members,
Mhm.
30 individual votes.
You believe that,
However,
you believe that the Senate should be elected rather than selected?
well,
Well, that's a difference. 'Cause it could be. It doesn't matter to me either, because it doesn't. It's not like if the Senate is
the Senate
a powerhouse.
Yeah, the Senate
No.
to me just
A thank you.
a toothless dog, really and truly.
Yeah.
Right?
But why not? I can go back to what you were saying, right? But why not? You have the
lower house and the upper house, right?
Maybe not stray too far, yeah?
No, I ain't gonna stray too far, but you have the lower house and you have the upper house. You just said the Senate is a toothless dog, right? But in order for any legislation that's passed in the lower house to get the governor general, they gotta pass through the upper house.
Yeah, but it's always you hold majority in Senate, so any party will get it.
Right, but what I'm saying is, if you had an elected Senate, right, where Tom, Dick, and Harry could come and put his name up, and whoever wins it, even if political parties organize and going, right? You know, realistically, right?
We're gonna talk about that another time.
No, I can come off the topic now, but realistically, if you had a Senate like that, right? You know that the lower house could make an amendment. You could decide, you know what? I champion in this.
But you see, the thing is, again, that calls for legislation to pass, and not only that. Why would you pass that when you have majority in the house anyhow? Will you remember it's only 9 independent, 11 and 2 from the opposition, and 12 goes to the current. So you don't need to change something because it's always going to be a win-win situation for you as a party that is elected. But as I'm saying is that in certain instances, you will need to enact policy. And while in Parliament, you can continuously speak to that. You can hint on that. You can hit at that. And as a minister, you can bring your own flair to what you want to bring. So sometimes it calls that, yes, I've made my mark as Kimar Jaffrey in this area, but I need to make a more national mark that I can't make from that chair.
Well, continuing on from what you said, right? This is where civics come into play, and civic organizations. Now, if you look at things like the Black Panther movement, they organize themselves into a unit.
Yes, of your time, but at the shelter audience.
Yes, they have attorneys, you know, doctors, lawyers, what's not, within their organizations. And they come up with the legislation that they wanted, or civic organizations come up with legislation that they want and lobby government. Now, in your perspective, from your perspective, what would be the ideal situation to embark on is that you sit down and you hash out with your attorneys and what's not, and say, well, hey, these are the appropriate policies that I want to be able to effectively be the president of the Barbados Parents and Homeless Society, right? And then you get buy-in from, let's just say we have the local governance thing coming on, or if you use the constituency councils,
people assemblies.
Yes, you get buy-in from these. Yes, you get buy-in from these organizations. You also get buy-in from the private sector and what's not, and you send that bill through your MP to Parliament and say, hey, we have the buy-in from all of these different players and what's not, and y'all need to debate it, and if it has the appropriate votes, it's supposed to pass. If not,
but that would only take Well, I've tried that already, and I've tried to put in things in government where, yes, you try that same approach. Where I was a part of a group in Sri Lanka. Iran is on here. Iran and me, Iran, both was in Sri Lanka, and what we realized from the Asia Alliance and Asia Alliance for Entrepreneurs, what they did is that they got all the Asian entrepreneurs to come together, and they all jot down, like, submit what a policy you would like to see. And they were meeting at the Troga, which is called the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, where all the Commonwealth, 52 Commonwealth countries come together, heads come together. And while that was the case, they came up with it. Let's say they had 100 submission. They did narrow it down because some submission will be the same, even though they may be worded a little different. So they look at the submissions, they break it down. So they had 100, came down to 30. Then they look at critical, they came down to 20. Then look at important, they came down to, and they started break down until they came down to 3. When they came down to 3, they would have then said, okay, we're gonna, as the executive now, because everybody submit, everybody voted, we're going to pick the one and carry it to the Commonwealth as a government, and we're going to ask them for that one policy. We got 99, we can't down to 1. And they found that worked. Because while they had 100, they could have kept 100 things in there and say, hey, we want all 100, but obviously Commonwealth as a government have much more to look at than to look at us. But the Commonwealth as a government seen the one thing, said, one, alright, cool, get them what they want and go down.
Yeah.
Well, that system would be good in Barbados. If everybody took that approach, they probably would be hard, because then you'll find that you're going to be debating something for cancer, something for homeless, something for this. And I don't find that the government are not even this government, but Parliament in itself, when it started debate legislation, I don't find that it debate local legislation. It always has to be in tune with an international request.
Well,
In some cases, not that they don't try to amend, but the amendments is also in keeping it accordance to in an international, keeping it in accordance with. And I think that we need to have more homegrown
well,
debates.
I want to make a point. I want to add something here. You know how we said that our system is modeled off the British, and there's often a saying in Barbados that we try to be more British than the British themselves, right? You know how you were talking about things that you would like to see done, and it would be like pulling tooth and nail to even get debated in Parliament, right? Because unless someone can't listen to doing it, the Barbados government necessarily even interested in doing it. In England, that where we follow their system for both the law and Parliament and everything. I think there's a thing where if a piece of England is a country of 57 million people, if a proposed piece of legislation garners the signatures, whether it be online or on paper, I think it's either 100,000 or 500,000. I'm subject to correction with the figure. It's either 100,000 or 500,000. Once you can get those amount of people in the whole of England, Scotland, Wales, and you know that's a big union, to say, look, we believe in this piece of legislation, right? It automatically has to be placed on the books of the actual Parliament for debate.
But that's
right?
a part of the legislation again.
Right. So I'm saying Barbados is 270,000 people, right? I believe that once at least, if England is 57 million, and England saying 100,000, right? But Barbados is 270,000. So realistically, once 1,000 people back it should be enough for us to embrace the debate.
It comes on to the issue that I raised before of the mentalities of those that we elect.
Let me jump back on youth.
Right. And it can take younger people who want a change, who want their agendas to be looked at. Going back to the point that you made again. We have to say, well, we have to actually start to push back on, okay, we put political parties in office, yes, they come with their agendas based on what they perceive that the island wants, right?
From my first time, I agree.
More than likely, these developments help out the international scene more than they help locals.
Standard.
We successfully developed Barbados for people coming in and not for people who live here.
I agree.
Right? We have the same issues no matter which political party. Garbage, buses, cost of living.
QH.
The same rhetoric dominates the political landscape constantly. So
how long you was hearing that a new hospital was to be built in Barbados?
Since 2005, 6.
But that was on the Thompson.
Yeah, but notwithstanding.
No, I was hearing a new hospital to be built in Barbados from 1990.
But notwithstanding all of that, what I'm saying is, now it's time for a new mentality to dominate the politics.
And and that's why, for me, youth have to be involved in politics. Youth have to be involved. And one of the things I would have loved to see, especially as it relates to boards, and I think I'm seeing it now, but I'd like to see it more prevalent, as it relates to board, as it relates to certain things, that a young person should always be involved.
Definitely.
Even though they may not be decision makers, but in some sense, but involved in board level, even when the government is putting board. I mean, I'm the youngest person on my board for the school board I'm appointed to. And I like that because as a young person can bring this fresh perspective.
Yeah.
And I think that this is where we need to start putting our young and brightest people in there. Whether or not I don't care what political spectrum they come from, but we need to start putting our young people in position. I remember, and it speaks a lot, you know. I remember when I first employed my staff, I basically give some of my staff, or majority of my staff, a management position, and I said that for me was like a 5 years. This is where they should see themselves 5 years in a management position.
Right, in
But-
our organization.
Or out of my organization, and I gave them it 5 years ahead before, and I said work backwards and prove to me that you deserve this position, because and you felt that the way they dressed, the way they speak, the way they act was a little different because they felt like, you know, it really felt like a somebody, you know. And I think that we need to start putting our young people, as we identify the young and we identify the bright minds of our young people, we start injecting them in some decision making
Okay.
positions.
I would consider myself to be a young, progressive minded person, right? This is the champion Europe point, and this is to raise a fundamental issue I have. No. A current member of parliament of this country, right? I told him about he know about my aspirations to be one day elected and what's not. I spoke to him at length about it. And his reply to me was, you shouldn't worry about getting elected. Don't worry about that, leave that out.
Wait.
I asked him why.
Why he elected?
I asked him why. He said, man, to be honest with you, my son is interested in this same area you might be interested in. So therefore you can't get it, he has to get it. Right?
Okay.
Another issue I have, another MP in this country, not that I disregarding what we call so-called work, right? But his ideal dream job for me was to offer me a job sweeping and mopping floors.
You serious?
Yeah, and because I had to say no, he started to get a little
Agitated.
agitated and abusive with his language, right?
So hold on a second. You're saying to me that you as a young man, and to be honest, there was nothing wrong with sweeping and mopping floors.
Right, that's
Right?
what I'm saying. But
Right? But you as a young
You just
man,
don't see yourself there.
right? But no. Here it is. You as a young man, and this is where me and a lot of people is butt heads, right? I thought I view myself going above the top.
wait, it ain't nothing like that, you know. It ain't about top and bottom, because work is work and have to make money
Yeah.
and what's not, right? But what I'm saying is, if you could clearly identify a child, or I would say a young man or a young woman who's on a particular path or
Yeah.
train of thought already, it's not like I'm now coming trying to make ends meet or anything, right?
Even if you were, so what?
Right. I already identified myself as a person who wants to be elected.
Yeah.
I articulated myself on issues, what's not.
Right, you lay your foundation.
Right. So why, or what was he thinking, or what is he thinking by saying, hey, you need a job? Go and sweep and mop some floors for me, man. Let me see what you made of. Right? That level of thinking is more that, okay, we don't want too many more of you coming forward because we didn't have the appropriate words to tell you. So we gotta kind of depress you and slow you down for a bit in the meantime. So just do that and get out of my way.
So that means they're not again, that's what we was talking about. You're not taking what I appreciate, that working and cleaning ground is all fine and that, and nobody negating the fact. But when you have your young and brightest, you have to take your young and brightest and put them in that place which they could grow. If you wanted to give that position of cleaning grounds and mopping floor to somebody,
Find somebody who wants
find somebody who want the job. And it's not saying that you don't want the job, but I'm saying still is the approach, you know. But at the same time, you cannot abuse the young and the bright minds of Barbados, and you cannot take the young and the bright minds of Barbados and put them aside, because you're killing the future.
I agree.
Because not everybody is going to be young and bright minded and willing to come out and say, not everybody's going to willing to come out and say, oh yeah, I want to be the future leader. I want to be a politician. Most of the people you got is going to say, yeah, I want to go downtown and work in Baton.
Yeah.
So when you get the bright sparks coming forward and say, yeah, I definitely want to be that future leader, and you can see that in the person, your job, and I believe the onus is on the now leaders to do is to develop us. Because when you leave us there, you leave us something headless. Because yes, well, we may be bright minds, it doesn't always equate to the fact that we know what to do. It doesn't always equate to the fact that we know how to do it. So having that person training us and teaching us and say, yes, I see the leadership ability. I see.
Well, have a good night. He said he's gone.
Yeah, well, so thanks for tuning in. Definitely, you have to do something with the minds of the young people. And far too much time, I see we push that the young person. Listen, I remember coming up and I had to fight as a young person starting a society at 19 years of age. And I got licks from people. I got people that tell me that I shouldn't be doing nothing for the homeless. I got people that telling me that the homeless don't need help. I had people that give me negativity and tell me that I could be doing other things in my life. And yes, I was doing things with my life. I was a bright star. I was an international growing up CEO. I was awarded by Harvard University for my work. And fastest growing businessman in the world. You understand? And at that time I was growing. I was making some money. And I had more money then than I had now. Had 100 and something businesses cleaning in this country. Had, all sorts of businesses here and there, shops here and there. But I left that to go and do what I felt more like to do. And I've never given up on being a businessman. But I had a lot of shoot down. I had a lot of people that they were white and believed that I should not be where it was. I had a lot of blacks that believe I should never move from where it was either. So I had that twofold licks. I had people that call me and carry me into dungeons and tell me straight, don't do nothing for the homeless. This is the organization that's going to be championing homeless. We've been doing it for 20 years and yet you never heard about them. So you had like all of these stumbling blocks. People that say, look, trust me, these people don't want to help, these people don't want you, these doing. And because I stood my ground and fight and struggled through, I'm where I am today. Okay. And I didn't let people pull me down. I had people walk into my new building in town and say, hey, this can't be ready for the 20th when we did the launch. It's impossible. This, you guys got a lot of work to do. And I set a date and they worked backwards to my date. And when the person came on the date, they were shocked. Because I accomplished everything that I said I would accomplish. When you find young people like us, you don't throw us to a side. You will kill the future. You understand? The onus is on the person to help that person to grow and to mature, so that when that person go out, they also can impact the young people. I tell people, gone are the days when Bill Gates could come and all me. Gone are the days when Jeff Bezos could come and all me. They can't all me or woo me. I would prefer to listen to a young person that is growing and a young person that has struggled through what they're struggling through, but is within my age bracket. That I can say, yo, well, if Kimar could do that, boy could do that, but he's still as young as he. Because when you look at the Warren Buffetts and you look at all of them guys, I love them. I love them. I love all those men. Yeah, but I love all those men. I love the ambition. But I said, I cannot identify with those men because those men are ancient.
But Mark is
but I'm not talking about Mark. I call the names I meant. So I wanted to be on the line where I see young. What I would like is, yes, the Warren Buffett or the Jeff Bezos or those coming and
Bezos
and Bezos or whoever and coming and saying to me, let me train you or let me take you to the next. That is what you want. But I'm more wooed by a young person coming out to the woodworks and claiming he top no than I be wooed by those guys.
The cement, I want to get this point before it goes.
Yeah.
The cement, what you were saying, right? I know you always say talk about Harold Barrow a lot, but it's relevant.
That's your political party, yeah.
No, this is not anything to do with the political
Prime
party.
Minister talk about you, I think. So.
Right. Harold Barrow, his philosophy, right? It stretched X amount of years.
Yeah.
But then after you started to see a decline in terms of, I would call it succession planning.
Yeah.
Right? When you have leaders, or you say you should have younger leaders, you have select now the current prime minister, right? The ideal situation for her would be to be raising younger politicians to come up and take over the mantle, right? And but not just coming with the idea that you want to win a seat, but you need to come basically in any field: politics, economics, banking, entrepreneurship, government making, any field. When you come into a field, you have to have an ideal of yourself and an ideal of what you are doing. How can this affect change on the lives of my family, on the lives of my friends, and on the lives of
the people of
the wider society, right? And the issue for me, like after Al Barrow, and if you want to keep it, you said my political party head, if you want to keep it in there, after him, there has not been many leaders coming after him who came into that field with an ideal of himself, saying, hey, when it comes into politics, if I rise to leadership, this is what I can do to change the lives of many. It has been a more selfish, egotistical.
I will stick a pin there for a minute. And you said Errol Barr. I grew up in, most of my political life, when I really learned and understood politics, right, would have been on the only Seymour Arthur. And I can be fair to you, right? Owen Arthur, I listened to Owen Arthur before he became elected as Prime Minister in Barbados. It was at a meeting in Wharton, right? And at that time, I thought, this tall man got real bigger, but not realizing that.
Short man.
Hold on, I was 10 years old. So I was shorter than he.
You were looking up.
Right. But I didn't realize that someday I would grow up and be real tall and Owen. Right? But the reality is that I listened to Owen and I said to my mother, Mommy, I like he. Right? The next election I worked for the Barbados Labour Party in my area. Right? Now, in terms of the point where you said about succession planning, right? From what I have seen, right, and I think the whole of Barbados has seen, Owen Arthur as Prime Minister, it could clearly be said, groomed Mayor Amara Motley, who's now the current Prime Minister, for the position that she's in today. Because she was the youngest Minister of Education in Barbados. She was the Attorney General, Minister of Economic Affairs,
Deputy Prime Minister.
Attorney General, Deputy Prime Minister. So she more or less, even in a cabinet where he had all these other people with vast experience, he picked the one person and he more or less put them as his deputy.
Correct.
Right?
Being a young person
to all them. And he said, look, this is the person, when on the island, she can act as Prime Minister. Right? Now that to me that's a big deal. Right? So everybody knew up front that this, even if they knew up front this is the most senior person after going up in this party, right? To the extent that when the Barbados Labour Party lost power in 2008, right? That Mayor Motley was the what was the word looking for here? The natural choice. To be the leader of the Barbados Labour Party. Now they had a lot of ups and downs, but because of being groomed, right?
And that's what we said. The important thing is to groom those that you identify.
Don't even be trying to thought that. Because of being groomed, I think people in Barbados recognize that talent and ability from years ago, and so in 2018, when Mayor Amara Motley finally got her first chance to go up for the position as the Prime Minister of Barbados and to lead the Barbados Labour Party in the polls, people said to themselves, we have a solid I trust Mia because she's not just popping out with the woodwork, she's someone that I have seen, right? And I believe that I can give her the opportunity.
But
right?
Hold on. Develop the point, please.
I developed it, right? My thing is this. You see how I said that Wayne did that, and then he also had his developmental policies and all that stuff, which can arguably be said lifted Barbados from one situation to the next, right? Do you guys think that the private sector in Barbados today, and I use the private sector purpose because the private sector usually are beneficiaries of everything that happens in government.
We're having a political debate.
No, man, not a political debate. But what I want to ask, do you think that? Hold on, this is related to you. Do you think that the private sector in Barbados today does enough to mentor young people in this country, right? To become the future business leaders and businessmen in this country.
When you say mentor, that's still a broad broad word as it relates to you say mentor the youth to become, because one of the things that you have to understand is that while the youth, most of our youth are between secondary to primary BCC. A lot of the businesses will say, yeah, give them a chance because it gives them internships. So mentorship is such a broad word when you say, I don't think that we have a strong enough mentorship program as it relates to
Definitely not.
as it relates to taking the youth to the next level in business. While I appreciate the $20 challenge, give people a chance to become to stretch their entrepreneurial thinking, there's no coming back to them after that year. You
Yeah.
know, so you don't even know if they're successful in the future because there's no 1 year, 2 year plan. And said, okay, let me go back to all these people who started the business while they were in fifth form. I wonder if when they get out of school, if they're actually starting that same business, continuing that same business, or if they're going working for Tom. So mentorship is not necessarily a word that you can equate with the entrepreneurship or the business sector, because most of them would say I give people internship in my business, and that would what they think is their contribution. When you're thinking, they have to be developmental program, but what you also find is that a lot of people think that they're too busy to give Kimar the ability to come and shadow him or her. So you find that the people don't want to put themselves in that trouble. Why should I come and make you shadow me while I'm trying to replace myself no time soon? And if this boy come and show he's a bright spark in my job, well, he in this business 5 years, 6 years, I out of a job. So a lot of people gonna be thinking about self. A lot of people gonna be thinking about how do I help him to become how do I make him my succession plan? How do I make him better than me?
We could break that down in two parts.
That's your
One.
right thing.
Okay.
One, we have a very aged population in Barbados.
Yeah.
Regardless what people think, we don't have young people in abundance over elders. So we usually develop economic policies to suit our demographic in terms of age and what's not.
Yeah.
Now, if you go deeper into the economics of it, the system is set so that you do not succeed too early in life.
Yeah.
That's a given, right?
Sad thing, boy.
So I said they don't succeed at all.
Yeah. So that good point. So that's where it takes those persons who would have made it. We call it generational wealth. Not only money, but intellectual property, knowledge, and what's not, like brain blueprints and what's not. Telling you, we call it capital. Again, I mean, start talking, mentioning.
When you finish it, I'll share a story. When you finish.
But what I'm saying is, those persons who get into their successful years, which usually is like 40, 50, that is where majority of persons in Barbados now start to become comfortable and successful, debt free. No, and younger persons coming up struggling. When you were young in the 1990s and 80s, life was considerably much, I don't want to say it easier, but it was easier to live as a younger person in those days compared to now, right? And I think that we need to start developing policies to fit the realities of young people nowadays. And this is the reason for so much weirdness and so much backwardness, because there's not much hope. There's not much hope going on due to how we set our development agenda.
Right.
Right? And I would like to see those persons who are in the position of influence to take up this shadowing program. You don't have to be fearful of
Somebody taking over your thing.
But if you could teach and give persons that intellectual capacity to see and know that they could take the knowledge and information and go implement it elsewhere. It doesn't have to be in your particular field, but the fact that you have the tools to be able to navigate the system much to your benefit as a younger person, that can help us to pass on.
Secure in the future.
Yeah, that can help us to pass on the generational tips so that we could become successful a little earlier on in life, because things have definitely changed. So meanwhile you could have waited to 40 to be comfortable and successful. With younger people, the time get a little slim and we can't wait so long because life hard.
I want to share a story with you, with you guys here now, right? I can share it in public because I don't really care. Now,
You got 1 minute.
no, I can speak quickly. You know, I often say I used to work in a certain commercial bank in Barbados, right? Now I no longer work at a commercial bank, so I can afford to say what I want to say, right? There are people within that organization who do everything in their power to keep down youth. Now you see like how you, Kimar, you're going to UE, you're doing economics, and you will be a gifted economist someday, right? You got drive, you got energy. It is believed that within 5 years you leave in UE, once you get the right push and all that there, you could go on to become a regional economist, right? You could even be one of the thinkers helping lead a central bank and that sort of stuff. There are some older folks in our organization, right, who would do everything in their power to suck that energy out of you. They will let you know up front, you can't be more than a clerk in here. You can't be this, can't be that, right? And you know when they will want to start taking you serious as an individual? After you were a clerk for about 10 or 15 years, right? So by that time you're 35, they can offer you a little promotion when you make you a sales officer. You understand? So that by the time you feel for yourself, you have 15 years to become a sales officer, right? So you take for yourself that the road to management for me is at the age of 50 or 55, right? Now, I am one of those young people who never believe in that foolishness, right? I tell people I live today. I got tomorrow put down. So I got up, I do what I gotta do, and I apply for jobs, and I try to move through the organization, because that's my thing, right? I try to build a house. I'm not finished it as yet, right? But I try to do what I gotta do, because you'll meet some good people, you'll meet some bad people, right? Now, if as a young person you are 18 years old, came to that same commercial bank, right? I said, look, I got a job and I want a loan, right? Do the clean loan, right? Because the ignorant people who actually deal with the approvals, right? They don't see, they wouldn't understand what 18-year-old would want money to buy a house.
But that's not identify the risk.
No, hold on. The only risk that you gotta worry about is like my got a job, he permanent, and that he got the ability to repay, right? And you should be actually glad that the man come at 18 to get the mortgage, which means that by the age of 48, if you do a 30-year mortgage, that your mortgage pay off and you can come back and get that mortgage to the age of 70. So I might get 2 mortgages within his lifetime, right? But that level of thinking is not transcended. Like I myself, when I left the organization, right, and I applied for a mortgage. I reapplied for another extension of my current mortgage, right? And there are people, I can tell the management, right, don't see the logic in a young person like myself firstly leaving the organization, right, and looking to go someplace else. I know the sort of derogatory comments that I received and that sort of stuff from some individuals. And, you know, I said to myself, as a young person trying to move up, and I am one person, I'm not ashamed to say this here. I am 34 years old, and and Kimar, I believe that you got a vision someday to be a prime minister in Barbados, right? I would hope so, because Henry Paul has been a backbencher, right? But
You're front bencher too?
well, true, but I'm saying, right? I am 34 years old, and I got a vision that someday I will be a CEO. You know what I'm saying? The same way how I got to get in an organization, and I got to say that this is the CEO. Someday I want to be CEO too, and I don't want to be CEO because I want to dominate over nobody. I want to be CEO to know what I have achieved. And you know what? I was one person who only want to be CEO for 5 years.
As a young CEO, then.
Right? Yes. Wait, you're a young CEO. And you want to empower other young people. Because you got to set positive examples for other young people. I got a son. I know, like, my son to see me really talk my career out. It's like when I look at him and tell him, listen, when you grow up, I want you to do the same in whatever you do.
Just make quick 2 seconds because you know we're wrapping up.
Yeah.
That's the reason why I ran in the first place.
Yeah.
To be able to empower and inspire younger people.
Yeah.
You empower me, so
and
you
put
do
it
something.
on the ballot. So Safri said, you know, they empower him.
Nah,
So
the-
How old you were when you ran last year?
23.
You empower
You
me.
was 23 now?
I was 24.
Oh, so you was 23 last year. So you were the youngest person to ever run for.
Yeah.
See?
And the only other person is Mia Motley.
At the time.
Yeah.
At her time,
At her time.
20 years later.
And then Dave Thompson was at 27 or something.
But you see the irony of this situation? That the youngest person ever to run for politics ran against the other person who was the youngest person ever.
Right, that's what I said for me. Like,
That's progress, my brother.
I ain't care on the boy. I saw it as an improvement for me because I thought in myself that a lot of other youths that were more advanced than Kemar stood at the time, and that were already giving back to society or had given back to society should have gone forth too.
Yeah.
But everybody balls was in their hand.
But with the political party structure,
And
you gotta
they did.
wait till when you get.
But yeah, but imagine, right? Well, the prime minister would have selected 30, and I sure know she would have watched some other people that would have been to run. I sure know anybody that would have run in that last election underneath the BNP ticket would not be the position of a lot of these ministers. So while we were of the fear that if I ran, I would have lose. I didn't have the money. I didn't have the. I mean, you didn't even have to speak at nothing, and you probably would have win because you swing with a carrier.
You want clear?
Right, you swing with a carrier. So I mean, that's what he imposed me.
All those things are just deterrents. So like losing is not a word in my vocabulary. I don't care anything with losing.
Just me and God come out and
I mean, every game the politics you definitely have to got some sort of money, but you ain't got a million, right? Because that's not what it's about, right? Politics that's not what it's about. So my point is that you have to enter into this thing with an ideal. You have to have something of substance, benefit, because if it give you $200, after that $200 dead, that's it. But if I'm able to pass a policy that you can make $200 every couple of days, I will feel better doing that than giving you.
Teach a man to fish, not don't eat fish.
But over to you, Mr. Motivator.
Yeah, man. Well, it was a quiet show, a fruitful show. So we glad that we were able to bring to you every Wednesday and every Saturday the show to basically highlight what is going on in society, how we can help keep our people encouraged and keep our people motivated, because that's what we are about. We're about motivating our young people, we're about motivating ourselves, and that's why we love DeBrief, and that's why we keep it coming to you every single Wednesday and thing. And we ask that you share us, like us, follow us, and we will be back again next week. Saturday? Wednesday. We have some very interesting people coming up during the week, so we really want you to.
This is we bringing Fabian and those guys.
Yeah, like Fabian. I think we have.
They can't be able to come in.
I'm not too certain, but we have some interesting people coming this week. Let me put it that way.
Okay.
We ask that you stay tuned and keep yourself aligned to the show. Thank you all for who watched the show. Thank you for Core World and those guys for sharing it onto their page, for Wazoo, for continuously watching all the time. But we want to thank everybody and we appreciate everybody. So, hey guys, you want to go to YouTube and look? Okay, no problem, Waza. And we want to thank everybody for this continuous support. So, have a good night.
Good night, guys.
Until next week.